US 60. Yeah. All right, we are talking about Westbound, Western US 60 in this episode. And as you will see, it's a pretty cool road. I think it's a lot prettier than the eastern half, but eastern half had its moments as well. Should be a lot of fun as we head west on 60. Let's take a look at the route. US 60 started in Virginia Beach. We finished off in Cairo, Illinois in the last episode, so we're starting from there and heading to western Arizona, where it will end. It used to go all the way to Los Angeles, and much of the California section is now replaced by California 60, the Pomona Freeway and whatnot. We might cover California 60 at some point and make a supercut of all these, but for now, this is going to be it for 60. All right, just as before, we are just talking about Westbound. We'll start here where we left off. We are crossing over the Ohio River, heading into Cairo, Illinois. We're concurrent with US 62 and 51. This is still a flashback part, and we are turning left to stay on 6062 and not heading into Cairo. And now we cross the Mississippi River and head into Missouri. Once we're in Missouri, Charleston is our primary control city, and for this part, that's a fine control city to have. Not so good for I-57 though. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about highways and the places that they're signed to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Yeah, subscribe. We meet I-57, and I-57 is getting signed for Sikeston and Cairo, which is kind of hilarious because we just came from Cairo. In fact, to get to downtown Cairo, you'd be better off just doing a U-turn than getting on I-57 here. Sikeston, of course, is a pretty bad choice for I-57, but would be a fine choice for US 60. And we're going to be getting on I-57 here, so that is not the best thing to sign, but it is where I-57 and US 60 are going. This was requested by Gabe Garret because he thinks it's pretty hilarious how I get mad at the bad control cities for I-57 in Missouri. Thank you for that request. Gabe requested that with a $5 super thanks, which anybody can do on any video to have a shout out of some sort. We've got our March Madness results show coming up shortly, and you can make a request for that. You can do an interstate shout out. Just shout out your favorite interstate if you want to have your name on the air. We've also got a Patreon going, and you can make requests there as well. With a $5 or more membership, you get one or more monthly requests with that, and I appreciate everybody who does that as well. Continuing on, we meet I-55, and I-55 for some reason gets much better control cities than I-57 did. We get North St. Louis and South Memphis. US 60 now signed for Dexter and Poplar Bluff. We're heading into Sikeston, so we have our interchange with US 61, US 62, and Business 60, and we were on US 61 fairly recently. You can check out that video right over there. That's a pretty cool road too. In Dexter, we are somewhat co-signed with Dexter up until we get there, and then from there we are now signed for Poplar Bluff once again. Poplar Bluff, we are meeting US 67, so we get West 60 and North 67 signed for Springfield and St. Louis, and those are fine long-distance control cities there. 67 south for Corning, Arkansas. Not sure if I'd go with that. Maybe Little Rock, because this will be the I-57 continuation on 67 here. We split with US 67, and now we are getting Van Buren and Springfield as our control cities. We get a nice mileage sign, Van Buren 37, Springfield 179 miles away, so quite a distance. In Van Buren, we are now going to be signed for Winona instead of Springfield. I guess maybe they feel like that's too big of a swing for Van Buren, but it felt like Springfield was on the right track. In fact, we could have been signed for Springfield since I-57. In Winona, now we are signed for Birch Tree. I don't know what they're doing here. It's 9 miles away, Birch Tree. Come on, put Springfield in there. In Birch Tree, we get a mileage sign with Springfield on the bottom line, as it should be. Springfield, a fairly hefty 111 miles away. We're meeting US 63 and US 63 South signed for West Plains. West 60 and North 63 will be concurrent. And now we're signed for Willow Springs and Kabul. What are we doing? Where's Springfield? We'll split with US 63. US 63 North here is signed for Rolla, and for US 63, that's fine. It is not I-44. And why is the other sign for US 60's main line so far ahead of us? We can't really see it until it's too late, given that it's on the left side. Here is a closer up look at the sign for West 60. So we are getting Mountain Grove and Springfield as our control cities straight ahead. And now at random interchanges, we are getting Springfield as our control city. So finally, everything Springfield. In Springfield, we are meeting US 65, and I think we're going to be covering that one before too long. And this intersection with US 65 was requested by Gabe Garret, so thank you for that request. We're meeting Business 65, headed for downtown Springfield, and 60 West is now signed for Republic. I feel like we could do a little better than that. We're meeting US 160 and South Missouri 13. North Missouri 13 is the faster way to Kansas City, although you take 65 to 44 for that. And now we're meeting our child route again. We were concurrent a little bit, and we're getting West 160 for Battlefield. US 60 is going to exit itself again. We are assigned for Republic and Springfield. Springfield is for 413, and West Missouri 360 to I-44 straight ahead. It'll dump you into 44. Here at the bottom of the ramp, after meeting Missouri 360, we are going to be turning left to continue straight on West 60. We see this Come and Go gas station right there. That was requested by Edwin Paschke. He said he was passing through on the way home and saw this Midwestern gas station chain Come and Go. Funny name, yeah. Edwin also wants to know about my thoughts about the future of I-57 in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. As I've said, I don't think they should have signed it in Arkansas yet. I feel like when you have a legacy interstate, you shouldn't sign it until it connects to the real interstate. I think it's a good idea, but they absolutely should keep the control city as Memphis in Chicago, as it is bigger and closer than Little Rock. Thank you for that request. We get to Republic, Missouri, and we're getting Billings 7 miles away. Now, not much of a control city at this point. And here in Billings, we are getting Marionville. So they're going very piecemeal, town by town here in southwestern Missouri. In Marionville, we're getting Aurora, which is probably the first of the three that probably should be signed. And from Aurora, we are getting Monet, Missouri, which I've been to before, actually, to catch US 60 on my way home from Arkansas. And I believe I ate at a Taco Bell there. Here's our junction for Monet when we meet Missouri 37, and we are now getting Granby as our control city, a cool 18 miles away. Ooh, we're getting some distance now. We're meeting Missouri Route 59, and we will be joining it, headed toward Neosho. We pass by I-49, and from I-49's perspective, US 60 is signed for Neosho and Seneca. And now here from Seneca, Wyandotte is going to be our next control city. So again, very small places that they're signing down here. We cross into Oklahoma. Maybe that's why they're signing such small places, because they don't want to sign Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, Fairland will be our first control city once we cross the state line. And here in Fairland, we are getting Afton as our control city. So very small places along this corridor of US 60. We're going to be meeting I-44, the Will Rogers Turnpike, which of course will be signed for Joplin and Tulsa, as it always is. Probably should just be signing 60 for Tulsa at this point up until here, just because there's not much around here. We are now going to be joining with southbound US 69 and southbound US 59 to have a tri-concurrency, and there's a hidden route here too. This is also historic 66 that we're joining with. You can check out my 66 video right over here. We're still signed for Afton, and US 59 is going to be leaving to head toward Grove. We made I-44 once again. We are kind of right next to it. We just get this turnpike entrance sign. And now we are losing US 69, so it will be just US 60 and historic 66. And those two do have a history together. Originally, 60 was supposed to go all the way to Chicago. It was going to have Route 66's route, but then they decided to change it and have 60 go to Virginia Beach, 66 go up to Chicago. We see this historic Route 66 sign right here, and we are getting Chelsea and Nowata is for us. Chelsea is for historic 66. Here is our split with historic 66, and we see it's going to be Oklahoma Highway 66, and we are heading right for Nowata and Bartlettsville. Bartlettsville that way. Why not just sign Bartlettsville this whole time? Here in Nowata, we do meet 169, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that city name right. I imagine I'm probably not. So my apologies to the fair people of that burg. In Bartlettsville, we meet US 75. I covered Bartlettsville a little bit on the US 75 video. You can check that out right over here. After being concurrent with northbound 75 for a little bit, we are now getting 60 west exiting for Ponca City. And when we get off the ramp, we are going to turn right and head for Ponca City. We're meeting US 177, and we are going to be going straight. We're now signed for Tonkawa. We're concurrent with northbound 177 for a little bit, and we are getting Business 60 signed for Tonkawa as well, because we are just to the north of the city. Now we're meeting US 77 itself. After meeting 177, US 77 also signed for Tonkawa. We're in the northern end of Tonkawa. We're within the city limits here, but the downtown is further to the south. We meet I-35 in Tonkawa, and from I-35's perspective, 60 is still signed for Tonkawa and Ponca City. Both of those are a little bit behind us at this point. But if you get off the ramp off of I-35, we see Lamont is going to be our next westbound control city. After Lamont, Pond Creek is going to be our next control city straight ahead. And in Pond Creek, we are going to be turning left. We meet US 81 here. We are going to be heading toward US 64 Junction and Enid. Enid, why haven't we just been signing Enid since Ponca City? We follow southbound US 81 to US 64, and we are going to get a wrong way concurrency with US 64. We're going to turn left onto West 60 and East 64, along with South 81. This was requested by Xavier Moss because he lives along US 64 in North Carolina and has been on US 60 in the Hampton Roads area, so he thought this was an interesting crossover. So thank you so much for that request. We're heading toward Enid, and our wrong way concurrency will end. We will be on South 81 and West 60, and East 64 will leave us. Here in downtown-ish Enid, we will be turning right. 81 will continue straight, and we are going to be joining US 412. After Enid, Woodward is going to become our next control city. We're going to be leaving US 412, which is bound for Woodward, and now we are going to get Orienta and Fairview as our control cities on US 60. And in Fairview, we're going to be turning right, and Sealing will become our new control city. We're meeting US 281 and US 270 in Sealing, so we get a pretty good sign salad here when we are going to be turning left. Here in Sealing, we will separate from 281 and 270 and turn right and head toward 183. We meet 183, and we are now going to be signed for Vichy going straight. We get a nice mileage sign here. We see Vichy 19 miles away, Arnett 46. So we get a slightly farther control city. We're meeting US 283, and Arnett and Amarillo will become our new control cities. Oh, Amarillo. Okay, that's a place I've heard of. We join with 283 North, and we are now signed for Higgins, Texas, and Amarillo. And we head into Texas. Welcome to Texas. Drive friendly, the Texas way. Here in Higgins, Texas, we're now going to be signed for Canadian. We're not going to be signed for Amarillo yet. And so Texas toning it down and not signing its more major city in the Panhandle. We're going to be meeting US 83. 83 North will head for Golf Course and Perryton. We will head for Canadian. And we split with southbound US 83, and West 60 is now signed for Pampa. And here, finally, we get signed for Amarillo once again, as we were in Oklahoma. So Amarillo, turn right. Heading into Amarillo, we are now passing the Ai San Bu Myanmar Market. And this was requested by Ryan Nichols because he was blown away to discover that there was a decent-sized Burmese community in Amarillo when he drove cross-country on I-40. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that either. I've actually been to Myanmar before. It's a beautiful country. Having problems now for sure, but when I was there a few years ago, it was awesome. And thank you for that request. We're going to be meeting US 287 North Buchanan Street, and we will become concurrent with US 87 South for Pierce Street. Yeah. So like the two worst presidents. How are you naming streets after those two jokers? 287 was requested by Daniel Brunberg, so thank you for that request. There it is, US 287. We're actually on South 287 along with 87 and 60. They just didn't tell us that. We are heading toward I-27 and I-40 in this complicated interchange in Amarillo that we looked at in the 27 episode. We meet I-40 and South 287 is going to leave us, well signed for Oklahoma City and Fort Worth, and west for Albuquerque. We are now signed for Canyon and Lubbock, and Canyon is there because of US 60 and 87, not because of I-27. Just a couple miles down the road, we are going to be leaving I-27 and South 87 signed for Canyon, West 60 for Hereford. We're concurrent with 87 for a short period of time, but then we are going to leave US 87 to head off on our own toward Hereford. Here in Hereford, we are now going to be signed for Freonia. Weird that Canyon the other way. Why not just sign Amarillo going the other way? In Freonia, we are now going to be signed for Farwell. So Texas signing just every random small town along the way, apparently. Meeting US 84 and US 70, not the last time for 70. And welcome to Texaco, New Mexico. I kind of like that name. Texas, New Mexico, Texaco. So we cross into New Mexico. In New Mexico, Clovis is our first city signed, and honestly, that's what we should have been signed since I-27. Here is downtown Clovis, and US 70 is going to be leaving us west US 70, although we will see it again. From here, Cannon Air Force Base and Fort Sumter will become our control cities for US 84 and US 60. We split with US 84, and now we are going to be signed for Vaughn, and a lot is going on in Vaughn. Before we get to Vaughn, we meet US 54. We will become concurrent with US 54, turning left heading into Vaughn. Santa Rosa, Tucumcari heading in the other direction. And now we will meet US 385, another T junction, and another concurrency forming as we head into Vaughn. Turn left for Roswell, and now we're signed for Santa Fe, even though we won't go anywhere near Santa Fe. So here is how things are working in Vaughn. So you see how 60 comes together with 54, and then both come together with 285, and then outside of Vaughn, they're all going to split up. So first off, US 54 is going to be going straight. It's signed for Santa Fe. 60 and 385 are going to be turning left. So we will leave the great US 54. We'll get an episode for that one at some point, though. Now we are going to be separating from US 385. 385 was the one signed for Santa Fe all along. Signed for Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Those are pretty famous places. We are going to be signed for Willard, which is not so famous. Willard is fairly distant, though, 38 miles away, with Mountain Air being the second city on our control city list. After Mountain Air, we meet New Mexico Highway 47, and our next control city is going to be Bernardo. Hope I'm saying that right. This junction with 47, this was requested by Andrew DeVore, because 47 heads to Las Lunas. That is where Tuca Salamanca knifed a guy in Better Call Saul while incarcerated. So thank you for that request, and yeah, I remember that too. I love that show. Great show. We're meeting I-25, signed south for Socorro, and instead of El Paso, north for Albuquerque. We are going to be joining South 25. We are in Bernardo, which is literally just this junction. So why not just make I-25 our control city instead of Bernardo? And 60 West is going to be leaving I-25, signed for Socorro and Magdalena. And once we get off the freeway, we see turn left for 60 and Magdalena. We get Datil, I'm not sure how to say it, and I'm not going to look it up because it's 50 or so people who live there. I don't know why they'd be signing it other than it's the first civilization at all for 34 miles. And then we're getting Springerville as our bottom line control city. Springerville is in Arizona, 142 miles away. Pretty good swing. And right here, we pass by the Very Large Array Observatory. It's a little hard to see on Street View from the current alignment, but the old one went right through it, but we're just looking at it from current US 60. This was requested by Olympianproduct, so thank you so much for that request. Further along, rural New Mexico, we are getting much smaller control cities, although Springerville isn't exactly a huge metropolis. We pass through some nice mountains in western New Mexico. Pretty cool looking here. Right here, we pass through the city of Pie Town. I just got to show you that because it's called Pie Town. And we see Springerville is still going to be our main control city. So let's skip ahead. We cross into Arizona. Welcome to Arizona, the final state of US 60. In Arizona, we're going to be meeting US 180 and US 191. So you know things are getting good when 191's around. We're going straight to join with 191 and 180 for the town of Show Low. Pretty interesting city name. So here is Show Low, and Globe and Payson will be our control cities after that. And US 60's name as it goes through the town of Show Low is Deuce of Clubs. Pretty interesting here. I read up about it. Show Low, apparently there were two old prospectors or something, and they decided this town's not big enough for the two of us. Then they did a high card, low card game. One of them had the Deuce of Clubs, so he got Show Low. Thus, the city's name is born. Heading out of Show Low, we are getting minutes to Phoenix via US 60, 200, and via State Route 260, 186. I imagine that depends on traffic and whatnot and conditions, so that is a pretty useful sign. Good job, Arizona. Here on Deuce of Clubs Road, our concurrent roads are going to be leaving us, and we are going to be heading straight for Globe. Go through some beautiful scenery here on our way to Globe. Here is the Becker Butte Lookout. Very nice area. And now we are getting down into the Salt River Canyon. This is where we actually cross the Salt River. This was requested by Nano because he says he would love to drive there in the future because it's a beautiful scenic drive. I can agree, with dangerous curves. He said it'd probably take him a week to drive there from New Jersey, which is entirely possible, but it'd be a fun trip along the way. Thank you so much for that request. Here is another look at the Salt River Canyon from the southern viewpoint after crossing Salt Creek. And we are getting some crazy curves here as we go around this area. Here's a giant hairpin curve that we're going around heading down this mountain. And now we're getting another minutes to Florence Junction 50 and Loop 202, 71. So 71 minutes now to the Phoenix metro area. We're getting into Globe, so this is US 70's eastern end. US 70 and 77 south signed for Tucson and Safford. We're signed for Globe and Phoenix. 70 and 60 used to be concurrent from this point all the way to to Los Angeles. And then they did finally truncate US 70 to this point, which makes sense because I don't know why you'd have hundreds of miles of concurrency just to have them end together in LA when you could just end 70 here. Heading out of Globe, our next control city is going to be Phoenix. And we get some nice scenery between Globe and Phoenix as we head that way. Get a nice loop around, still signed for Phoenix. Downtown would be headed for Globe, I believe there. Meeting Arizona 79, this would be the Florence Junction that we heard about previously on that electric sign. 79 south for Florence and Tucson. And we're jumping over to where we're getting into the Phoenix metro area. So here is the exit for Loop 202. Phoenix doesn't have any actual interstates for 3-digit highways surrounding it. It's got its own Arizona highway loops that they have built. 101, 202, 303. And as we get closer into town, we get 101 because they are concentric. We are now going to be joining with I-10. We were a freeway on our own, but we're going to be joining with the freeway in Phoenix. Westbound 10 and 60 still for Phoenix, eastbound 10 for Tucson. We're meeting north I-17 for Flagstaff, also the I-10 West truck route, and that is also West 60's route. 10 West Los Angeles is going to curve around, although these two roads will meet again on the other side of downtown Phoenix. Coming from 10's perspective, when it meets 17 the second time, there is no sign for US 60, but they did sign it when we were getting onto I-17, so that works. Shortly after getting onto I-17, 60 is going to exit for Grand Avenue, where it is a pretty big street through northwestern Phoenix. Sometimes Grand Avenue acts as a freeway, sometimes it's an expressway, sometimes it's a street. It kind of changes, it's pretty rangy. Here's the exit for Camelback Road, which is where we enter Glendale, so we're no longer in Phoenix. Here we're meeting Loop 101. Loop 101 is not that stoplight there, that is the stoplight for the ramp to Loop 101. And right here's where we enter Surprise, which is the reason for this episode. Spring training, and the Royals are in Surprise doing spring training right now. Bel Grande Drive. Awesome name. I feel like, that'll be some Taco Bells around there. That's where you're going to turn left to head over to the Royal Spring Training Facility off US 60. You can't see it from US 60, so I will show it here. Here is the Royals Spring Training Stadium in Surprise, Arizona. And here's me at a Royal Spring Training game back in 2009. Looking pretty beardy then. 60 is now going to be meeting the outermost loop in Phoenix, Loop 303, and we are still signed just for Grand Avenue. Once we do get out of Phoenix's large suburban sprawl, we get signed for Wickenburg. Wickenburg is the endpoint of US 93, so we get this circle coming up here. We see Kingman and Las Vegas, 93 north, you're going to head right, or West 60 for Wickenburg and Los Angeles, continue straight or around the roundabout. Pretty important junction here. When they say 93 south for Phoenix, they mean Wickenburg and then 60 the rest of the way. Here's what it looks like going into that circle. So 93 north turn right and West 60 go left. Here's where West 60 exits the roundabout and we get a nice welcome to historic Wickenburg as we leave that roundabout there. Once we leave Wickenburg, it's pretty desolate desert scenery for the rest of the way for US 60. We're meeting State Route 71. It's signed for Prescott. We are now signed for Los Angeles. So that's pretty cool. However, when we meet State Route 72, we're signed for Blythe instead of Los Angeles. I don't know why they do that, but they do enough LA signage on 60. It's Arizona after all. They do a good job. And now we get a nice mileage sign, Junction I-10. That's actually where we end. And then two places beyond our endpoint that are on I-10, Blythe and Los Angeles. Getting Junction I-10 in half a mile. And here is where we meet I-10. We met it before in Phoenix. We meet it again. So Los Angeles straight, Phoenix, cross the bridge and get on to eastbound I-10. Here's what it looks like as 60 merges onto I-10 West and ends, although, as I said, US 60 used to continue down this route to Los Angeles before leaving on California's State Highway 60. All right, let's talk about TODS the way it should be for US 60. I'm just going to talk about the way it should be for the entirety of Westbound US 60, so I'm showing the cities from the first video here as well. And I'm going to start with where we were at in this video. I'll start with Cairo. So the way it should be Cairo, Charleston, Sikeston, Poplar Bluff, Springfield. Springfield from Poplar Bluff, if not sooner. Aurora, Monet, Yosho, Bartlettsville / Tulsa because of that I-44 action. Then just Bartlettsville, Ponca City, Enid, Amarillo, Clovis, Vaughn, I-25. Like I said, the one town, it's nothing. It is the I-25 junction. Then Socorro, Globe, Phoenix, Glendale, Peoria, Surprise, I'm just doing a bunch of Phoenix suburbs because they're all a lot bigger than anything else you'll pass on US 60 the rest of the way, then Wickenburg, and finally Los Angeles. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. I had a lot of fun. Excited for spring training. Baseball starting soon. We are going to be looking at US 322 for opening day of baseball coming up next week. After that, we have got the results show for Interstate Madness. Give a shout out for your favorite interstate if you'd like. Until next time, my name is Todd, and keep on trucking.